Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here. I have a new story for y'all today. I know that I missed out on the weekend and I apologize for that, but I'm here now. Today, we're going to be talking about a woman who ended up turning into a murderer, but not by her own doing. But it's also up for debate on whether or not she's innocent or guilty. And she becomes a ghost, obviously, and she's still seen to this day. So, if you've never been here before, my name is Brandy, by the way. What I do is I bring dark history stories to life, stories you have never heard of about witches or vampires or werewolves or poisoners or any of these type of things, and ghosts too. Because today we're doing another ghost, basically. We did a ghost last week who solved her own murder, and this one is kind of just at an unrest, and we're going to go over exactly what happened. So let's go ahead and get this party started. So we are talking about Mary Blandy, the ghost of Oxford today, okay? And she was born in 1720 in Henley, UK, in the Oxfordshire little section of the UK or whatnot. All right, she was born to a very, very influential family. Her dad was a lawyer. He had a lot of money. She grew up very smart. She had a great disposition. Like, everybody really liked her. They all thought that she was such a great person. So she had a really good reputation. She was smart, funny, pretty. She was an Anglican, so she was very devout in her faith. You know, she was a good girl. But unfortunately comes the time, during this time where you're supposed to get married, right? Yeah, well, so our girl, Mary, starts looking for a husband. And her dad feels the need to help her out in this, okay? And the way he does it is this, oh man, I'm sorry, but if any of this is to be blamed on anybody, it's the dad, okay? I am just saying, because what he ends up doing next is absolutely insane. So her dad puts an ad in the newspaper, y'all, saying that she has a dowry of £10,000, right? He's trying to get, some suitors to come to their area. But why put an ad in the newspaper for your own kid? That's just inviting in so much trouble. But I guess they just didn't think of it like that back then. You know what I mean? I mean, that's because it does bring trouble. It brings trouble, and it brings trouble in the name of William. Okay? Now, this dude was nothing to write home about. All right? Let me just tell you that from the get. He's very short. He had a really messed up face because he had smallpox. He was also a gambler, and he was kind of a jerk. So, but he was 12 years older than her, but she fell in love, y'all. You know, when you fall in love, you can't help who you fall in love with. Am I right, or am I right? His full name is Captain William Henry Cranston, and that is the man that caught her eye and caught her heart. All right? And so they start to see each other. They start like courting or whatnot. And the dad is super excited about this, okay? Because for one thing, this guy also has noble ties in Scotland. He's like a traveler. He's always on a ship, going somewhere and doing stuff. But he's also a noble person back in Scotland. So he has stature. So even though her dad, Francis, was like, if this is the guy you like, yeah, I guess that's cool or whatnot. So he gave them their blessing to get married. And they were going to get married in 1751, y'all. But, unlike last week, word came around that the captain is married. And he has a kid with the person he's married to back in Scotland, okay? So she's been courting a man that is married. Can you just feel the embarrassment coming off? Like, I would be so embarrassed to not even know, to be so innocent and to not even I mean, but you wouldn't think to ask that because you put an ad in the paper for an eligible bachelor, right? Not for a married man, you know? I mean, it's just bonkers. Once he gets busted and people are like, you're married. He's like, oh, no, 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 no. It's not a real marriage. She's just my mistress. You know, I will go and have it annulled and all this other stuff. Which, if it's not a marriage, why are you going to get it annulled? But so he travels to Scotland many times to go and get an annulment from his wife. But unfortunately, because you can't really get an annulment when you already have a kid with somebody, you know, that's just not going to work. You have to get a divorce. And evidently he didn't want to go through that, but he kept telling her, don't worry, I'm going to leave my wife. It's what they say. It's what they say. I'm going to leave my wife. Don't worry, it's going to happen. Her dad was not chill with this, not at all. Her dad was so mad about this situation that he called off their wedding. He's like, y'all aren't going to get married. You can't. Obviously, you can't because he's already married. So, you know, you can't. He says he wasn't going to have any bigamy in his family, is what he said. I know, right? Like, what? I kind of love the dad, but, you know, I'm sorry, Dad, but you're the one that put this girl in the newspaper asking for eligible bachelors saying you got 10 grand in your pocket. What's wrong with you? You know, you're going to attract the craziest of the crazy. I'm just saying, you are. And she just so happened to fall in love with one. There's her innocent, you know, and, you know, little Christian church self. She fell for all of his BS. And so they cancel the wedding. But she still sees him. Yes, like in true teenager form. She still sees this man on the sly, on the secret. And so he starts to get in her head. And he's like, you know what? There's some chicks back home in Scotland that like to make love potions and stuff. And I bet that I can get a love potion. And if you give it to your dad, he will give us the blessing to go ahead and get married. She was hesitant. She was like, you know, I'm not really sure because he already had it. It was a powder. It was a love potion powder. Okay. And so she's like, I'm not really sure about this, man. You know, like, what is this stuff? What's in it? And, you know, what does it do? So he proceeds to tell her, I've taken it before and I felt its effects. And, you know, it just gives you a loving feeling, basically. He says it's going to make her dad give them the blessing that need to get married or whatnot. Even though this dude is still married to somebody else, he's still determined to marry this Mary chick. And so he gives Mary this powder and she starts to give it to her father. Trusting a man that is married and has a kid, and you trust him to give you something to give to your father, who he can't stand because her father is standing in the way of them, you know, becoming married or whatnot. When in actuality, this guy just wanted the 10,000. Okay, that's the point here. He wants the 10,000, and so for her to trust this guy, she must have just been blind, sick, in love with this man. She had to have been. I mean, if she was still seeing him and all this other kind of stuff, you know. So she ends up putting it into his food. And eventually, you know, some of the food that goes around the house gets eaten by some of the worker, like the servants in the house. And they get sick too. And so not only does her dad get sick, some of the servants get sick. But her dad always had issues with his stomach. And so she thought nothing of it. She just thought that, you know, this was just his issues that he normally has or whatnot. But eventually, one of the servants looks in the bottom of a glass and sees like a little some granules in the bottom of the glass. And so she goes and she talks to Mary and she's like, what are you putting in this glass? So the servants, they figured it out, right? They're like, you're poisoning him. And so what does she do? She's upset. she didn't realize, she doesn't know, or at least we think, that he was being poisoned with arsenic. That was what's in the love potion or whatnot, or the inheritance powder. There's two different versions. They're saying it's a love potion, and they're also saying it could be inheritance powder. And we talked about inheritance powder last week. I'll pin the video on what that, so you guys can kind of know what that is. But these were not potions like in the good way. These are all very, very, very much so poisonous. And she was giving her dad arsenic, and she wasn't even realizing it because she was told by William to give it to him and it would be fine. You know, he had taken it before, just totally chill, right? Nothing bad happened to him. So everything is totally fine. So one of the servants was like, I'm going to tell your dad straight up. So the servant goes and says, hey, look, she's been giving you stuff with arsenic in it. Okay. And he's not mad. No, he's not mad at all, surprisingly. And all he says is, poor lovesick girl, what will a woman not do for the man she loves? So he kind of knew that, you know, he forgave her. He blamed William straight up. He blamed William for the whole entire thing. He never thought that his daughter did this on purpose. Never thought he did this on purpose. No. So Mary starts begging for forgiveness, right, from her dad. She's like, I am so sorry. I had no idea that this was what was in, you know. And by this time, he's like so sick, there's no coming back from it. You know what I mean? And so she begs for forgiveness, and he tells her he would, quote, pray to God to bless thee and to amend thy life. And like I say, he blamed William for the entire thing, even though if you think about it, William would have never showed up if he hadn't put a freaking ad in a newspaper talking about, I got 10,000 pounds, which, by the way, when Frances dies, her dad, he got 10,000. He only got 4. So he didn't even have what he said he had. So he was kind of doing a little scamish too. So Frances passes away on August 14th of 1751. And guess who is nowhere to be found? William. Oh, yes, he left. He got out of there just by the skin of his teeth, let me tell you. And he went to a whole other continent, you know, because he was a sailor. He could do that. And he left her to take the blame for all of it. Like, I'm telling you, when I read that, I was like, this girl probably was about ready to die. Her heart was probably absolutely ripped out of her chest. Like, she thought this man was she was in love. She was in love, and she thought she was doing a good thing. She thought she was going to help her dad make a better decision about her and William's, you know, little tryst or whatever. But you can't be married to 2 people. I mean, maybe in some people's religion it's that way, but according to the law, it's not that way. No. So we know William dipped out, but you know who also ran? Yeah, Mary did. She tried to run too, but she insisted that she had no idea that there was any arsenic in the powder. She was very insistent on that through her entire trial, which did not last long, but they did do an autopsy because, as we know, Frances was a very prominent lawyer. And I don't know if this was during the same time. I don't know if they'd come up with the arsenic, you know, the testing of the insides for the arsenic yet. I'm not sure. So, because the way this guy found out it was arsenic is she had tried to, well, she burned her letters from William, okay? And then she tried to burn the little baggie of powder that he had given her. The servants took it out of the fire and then gave it to the doctor and was like, this is what she's been putting in drinks. And he lit it on fire and it smelled like garlic. And that's how he knew it was arsenic. So they catch up to her at this little place called Little Angel Pub, which is also an inn now. And they finally coax her to come out, because she's freaked out. She's like, I didn't mean to do this. She maintained her innocence. She said that he didn't tell me that that's what this was. I didn't know that's what I was doing to my dad. That's what she kept saying. So they finally get her out of this pub, and she ends up going to court. And this test that was done by burning the powder actually was one of the first tests to become like a forensic study for the use of poison as a murder weapon, by burning this powder. If they could find the powder, if there was any left after somebody used it, they could burn it and it would smell like garlic. So there you go. If you think somebody's poisoning you and you find some poison, light it on fire, and if it smells like garlic, it's arsenic. Okay, just telling you. I feel like that's a good piece of knowledge that we all should know at this point in our lives. It didn't take them long for them to find her guilty. Yeah, they did. They found her guilty. It didn't matter what she said. And if she, they didn't believe her. They say that she knew that the poison was in there. I don't believe that. I don't believe that she did. Her reputation was like way too good, She was intelligent. She was in the church. I think she just fell in love with just like a really awful human being. And if her dad hadn't have put this in the newspaper, none of this would have happened. All right. So on April 6th, 1752, Blandy was hung to death in the crime of parricide. And I had to look that up. That's actually when you poison a family member. They have a certain name for that. I didn't know that, obviously, because I've never poisoned any family members before. But yeah, that's what it's called, patricide. And so she got hung for that. Now, her case was in the paper. Of course it was in the paper, because everybody loves this kind of stuff. And there were pamphlets going around discussing, did she actually know? Or is she actually telling the truth and saying that she had no idea there was arsenic in this? We don't know. But pamphlets and newspaper articles went around, of course, talking about the trial and all this stuff. So it became a thing. So Mary actually says something before she gets up to the gallows. And what does she say? For the sake of decency, gentlemen, don't hang me high. That was her last words. And now people see her. They see her as ghost because she was hung at the Oxford Castle in Oxfordshire. And so they see her her ghost there. And they also see it at what's now called the Little Angel Inn, which I'm sure it's still a pub too. They see her ghost. They've actually caught it on camera too, as some of these pictures you see. But it's just such an interesting case that somebody that's was looked at highly in her community, and all of a sudden she falls in love with a man, and he just utterly destroys her without her even realizing it. This is one of the saddest stories I think I've done on here, because I feel like she had no idea. She was intelligent and all that stuff, and she should have known, but she didn't know, okay? I don't feel like she knew. And I feel like by William running away, that proves the point that he even knew. You know what I mean? But the thing about William is, you know how he died? The same way her dad did. Yeah, like really, really bad intestinal stuff. So he might have been poisoned. We don't know. But we do know that he died violently. And it wasn't but like 5 or 6 months later that he died. So karma caught up to him quick. That's all I gotta say. But yeah, the ghost of Oxford, she still roams, Miss Mary Blandy, probably looking for William, trying to figure out, where did you go and why did you leave me here with this madness? Absolutely. Like, give me a break. So that's the story of Mary Blandy, you guys, and I hope you guys liked it. I know this is a short one today, but like I said, this weekend I was so busy with wedding stuff. Obviously not mine, but family stuff. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I missed y'all. and I'll be working on the next one very, very soon. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys subscribe, as I am new and I'm trying to build, so that would be fantastic. But anyway, y'all have a wonderful day, and if nobody's told you today, I love you.